Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world, in the country, and whether you're watching this live or on playback. It's much better live, much more fun. You get all sorts of people saying hi and things like that, like Sena Juarez. I'm going to guess that is. Also, today, my dog is in camera because you can just about see him in the background. He's a little fatty, and there's another one down here as well who is snoring loudly. So, luckily, the noise cancellation shuts that up. But the little boy in the background, just he's my office companion. He's got a bed under the desk, and so he's normally down there out of the way. So today he's decided to go in his other bed. So there you go. Gazza says hi. Hello, how's it going? Good. I've already said put Terry up here on here, and JP. JP is going to feature in this webinar today. He's actually got quite a big part to play in it because I'm going to talk about his project called Taurus TLS, which is very, very interesting. Why is someone messaging me when I muted my phone? How is that even possible? Let me just silence this person forever. I don't even know how you can do that. You're set on do not disturb. And yet it wasn't. Oh, there you go. There you go. I have an additional setting. I have a new Android phone and a new iPhone, and everything's complicated. So what have we got? Happy Friday, last day of February. Yes, it is, David I. Last day of February, and which means next month gets a bit complicated because around about the 9th, the USA, we move our clocks forward. Well, some parts of the USA, not if you're in Arizona, for example. They did keep saying they were going to abolish daylight savings time, but it hasn't happened yet. But so from March the 9th onwards, will be 5 hours different from the UK and some of the others as well. We will make sure to let you know if you haven't already done it. If you're watching on YouTube and you're not quite sure about time differences, click on the like and subscribe button. I won't know who you are. We can't spam you. We won't send you any emails or anything like that. But if you click on like and subscribe, when I go live, it will ping you, and then you can go, oh, it's an hour earlier than normal. It's only like that for 2 weeks. But spring is the weird time where most of the USA suddenly is in a different time zone to the one you're used to if you live in Europe. So don't miss us. We are around doing stuff, but we'll be an hour different. And I will get around to shaving it. I'm not joking. I've been so busy, I've not had time to trim my beard. I normally like it very short because it gets itchy and things like that. But I've not quite reached David I's magnificent beard wearing. But if I carry on much longer, then I will do. There's so many people saying hi. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining. Today's webinar is quite long, purely because, not because what we're doing is that long. Once we get the app running, it's actually like that. It's very easy to do. But the problem is that the setup behind the scenes for OAuth, which is what we need to have going, OAuth 2 actually, is a little bit complicated because you have to go through some steps to pre-register yourself and get some credentials set up on Google, for example, and it takes a little while. Hello all, and thank you, Ian, for that good content you've been sharing with us. Thank you, Celine. I've always been a fan of Delphi, so it's really good for me to actually be here doing this. I mean, I work for the company, and so now I get to influence the uptake of Rad Studio, and it's working well. Things are going up slowly. We're number nine in the TIOB index. We're going to bump around, from 9 to 11 and that. One day I hope to get us a little bit higher. We're never going to be top 3 or top 5. C++, C, and all those are Python in particular. I would have to go around and like King Herod and steal the people away who are doing Python before we could get to the top 5. But hey, we've got a chance of improving, and it is working. David R says Arizona and Hawaii sound standard time. Yes, and my fellow American, I know British accent, but if you look in the background there, That is my actual citizenship certificate. It's carefully edited so you can't get my number off it, but that shows I'm a US citizen. My passport's here somewhere as well. So I call myself an American, but I'm a British American. It's something I'm proud of. I'm very proud to be an American. I'm proud to be British as well, and European as well. So Ralph says hi, and talking of Europeans, hello from Friedberg in Germany. Hi there, Mike. Hope you're doing well. A little further afield, Stefano from the Dominican Republic. Been to the Dom Rep. Beautiful, beautiful place. Up amongst the mountains and things like that. It's really great. Haiti, which is obviously attached to it, not having such a great time. It's the island of Hispaniola, for those that don't realize. Excuse me. I've got dog hair on my tongue. But Dominican Republic, beautiful. I saw a guy climb a tree once to get some dates barefoot. If you've ever put your hand on these date palms, they're like razors. Really incredibly talented guy and extremely good. Oh my word, Malcolm Chain is joining us, and it's 4 a.m. in Oz. Oh my God, Malcolm, do what I do. Drink plenty of coffee. I have some webinars coming up for South Korea and Australia, their time. So, Malcolm, you'll see me in the future doing a live webinar in Australian time. So I'm going to be tired too that day. That's what coffee's for, right? It's keeps me going. That's what keeps me upbeat. Plus, I'm happy at what I do. Peter, who I know well, I've worked with Peter in the past. Hello from Britland. Yes, Mold, if I remember. I seem to remember you lived in Mold or something like that. But it could be wrong. But anyway, Peter's a great guy, very good, very enthusiastic user of Delphi. Dominic Mahan says, "Did I miss the party?" No, you didn't. We're only just starting, so all good. And last one I'm going to call out for now, Doug, who's a regular, frequent flyer. I'm sure some of the others have joined. I missed a few as well. Good morning from Campbell River in Canada. Sounds fantastic. It's really, really good. Philippines, and I did notice a couple of other times as well. Liège in Belgium, beautiful country, Belgium. Really, really love it. And Chile as well. So there you go. We've got a fair old collection of. Hello from Brazil, Thiago Santos. Yes, Thiago. Yeah, a very good, strong C++ MVP. I'm sorry that these webinars have been mostly focused on Delphi. Red Studio is Delphi and C++ builder, but Thiago is a very good, a very useful MVP. He does a lot of cool things for us to help C++ along. We're going to focus more on C++ soon in March. I think we're going to do a load of webinars about it. Michael, another user from Belgium, and what did I miss? I just saw someone else say something as well. Oh yes, and Peter in Britland. Yes, did I mention you already? I think I probably did. Yes, I'm Jack's total lack of surprise. Morning, all from Washington State. Yeah, love Washington State. I'll tell you something I like in Washington State. I've been there. Snoqualmie Pass. Beautiful, absolutely incredible waterfall there. If you ever get to come to America and you go to Seattle or around that area, go to Snoqualmie Pass, because it's absolutely gorgeous. The thing about the United States, speaking as a Brit who now lives, I've lived here 15 years, it's like 50 different countries with 50 different or more types of terrain. You want mountains and snow, go to where David I is. He's got snow and massive pine trees and things like that. If you want raging rivers and stuff like that, they're here. You want big, flat, open countryside with lots of cattle, come to Texas. It's hot all the time, very warm. This is as untanned as I get. But I love the United States. There's many things wrong with many countries, and the United States is far from perfect. I totally appreciate that. I'm not going to comment on politics. I always say our only religion is Delphi, and our only politics are tabs and spaces. The world's full of complications, and I'm not taking sides. But Ron says I need to come and visit Washington State. Yes, I do. And in fact, we're thinking about doing that, going to a few places in the United States. There is actually Peter. So I went to Seattle for 2 weeks. Just got back. Lots of fab little breweries. Yes, actually, there's a lot in Texas as well. We've got several in DFW area. Whilst we're talking about tours, I'm actually going to just mention this. And that is GDK Software, one of our tech partners. Many of you will be familiar with Marco G. He's also the guy that is running the Delphi Summit. And just in case this is your first time on the webinar, I'm going to put that up there, the QR code. Anybody who's everybody will be there from the Delphi world. Really great summit. It was a lot of fun last year. They hold it in a video games arena. The stage is fantastic. There are pictures of me. I don't think we've got any now, but there are pictures of me and yeah, no, it's gone now, but there's a picture of me and myself and Jim McKeith dressed as Star Trek captains because we're geeks. And I was dressed as a very fat and old Commander Picard, Jean-Luc Picard, and Jim was dressed as Jim Kirk. Damn it, Jim! A lot of fun, but there is a serious side to it as well. You learn a ton of things at the Delphi Summit. There's some good ones going on Brazil and a few things like that as well. So tabs and spaces, yes, love it. Yeah, it's the best way to start an argument amongst developers. Is that, I mean, have you seen Silicon Valley, the program? Great scene in there. They really called it. And nice and bright here today in England. Cold though, Nigel, yes. And hello, Cesar Lopez, yeah, from Porto in Portugal. Beautiful. Was there at the end of last year. Really, I love Portugal. I love the food there, and they have some really. I mean, that's why I'm overweight. The food is fantastic there. Ate by the harbour, and it's really good. Tabs and spaces equal dark beer versus light beer. Yes, it is. Look, okay, so look, thank you all for checking in. I do appreciate it. It's important for people to realise that Delphi is in use around the world, and so is Rad Studio and C++, and C++ Builder, and C++ in general is in use everywhere, absolutely everywhere. And Rad Studio, I always say this. I mean, I think when I see people using other programming languages instead of Delphi, I think you're just doing it the hard way. I know I would say that. You'd expect me to. I'm wearing the Embarcadero shirt. But I mean it. I really, I used to use Delphi long before I ever got involved with Embarcadero. And I think the product's great. I think the language is very clean and clear and very easy to use. So, it's not difficult to convert as well. If you are a developer and you've developed another language, Delphi is straightforward, very, very easy. C++ is great as well, but it's a different beast. It's designed to be general purpose, and I'm sure Björn Strustrup would say that as well, but it's much more like having the surgeon's toolkit available. You can do absolutely everything. And if you really want to decide, oh, I'm going to fit this register or that register with this value, C++ is your boy. It's like the aircraft grade engine as opposed to your standard, reliable everyday engine that Delphi is. So C++ is a very, very good language, but because of that, it's slightly harder to use, I think, whereas Delphi is much more straightforward, but they're both equally useful. But I personally, I think I've always thought that Delphi was really the easiest way to get anything done. Okay, so look, long presentation because there's a few concepts that we need to grasp. So we're going to head over to that now and do that. I'm going to hide my QR code and from there, but like I say, Delphi Summit, that's the place to be. If you can get to Europe, and not everybody can, you really should go to that one because it's very cool. Okay, let me share my screen and make sure I share the right one and don't cause some kind of, multiple thing. There you go. And let me pull up my thing. Now, I always say this every time, just to remind those that are new to this, although I suspect not, we've got quite a few people watching. When I'm watching the slides, it's difficult for me to see the chat. So if I don't respond, don't worry. I will come back to the chat later and deal with your questions and things like that if you've got any. Stick it out with the presentation because it goes into a lot of depth and it will cover probably most of your questions. So we'll get to the end and then I can address any questions. But let's start by first of all resizing this silly screen that Microsoft. I just heard today, by the way, that Microsoft have are getting rid of Skype. From May, they will no longer have Skype. They're going to make everybody use Teams. Now, why is that interesting to us at Embarcadero? The reason is the very first version of Skype, up until version 7 of Skype, was written in Delphi. And it was very useful. And there's a whole set of blog posts we're going to produce because we knew the team that worked on Skype and why they chose Delphi in the first place, and why Microsoft, encouraged them to walk away from that, which is fine. And we would argue, and I'm biased, so don't take my word for it, that we think the version with Delphi, written in Delphi, was a lot better. But that wouldn't be totally fair because they pushed it a lot, did a lot of things. But they are literally getting rid of Skype. And Nigel says maybe Embarcadero should take it on. We'd love to. We would absolutely love to. But I'm sure Microsoft, they spent $8 billion buying it. I don't think they give it up for free. Certainly not to us. We get on very well with Microsoft. Don't think there's some kind of rivalry. That's not true. We collaborate on many things. We have a good working relationship with them. Things like ARM PCs and ARM Windows, we directly talk to the people involved in that, and they're great, solid bunch of professionals. Don't think for 1 minute that we have got anything that we don't like about them. There are shared members of staff that used to work at Embarcadero or Borland actually and work at Microsoft, and got a lot of respect for them. We just think that our product for development has got some advantages, and I'm sure other people would argue that have other advantages as well. So anyway, let me hide my camera and let's go back to this. So let us go through today's webinar and the slides. There are a lot of slides and a demo, so stick it out if you want to know how to send Gmail and also email using OAuth 2 and understand how OAuth 2 works, which on what it is, if you don't know, then stick around because I'm going to show you that in Delphi. It's actually not that difficult, but it is a little bit intricate. Who am I? If you've not seen me before, my name is Ian Barker and I'm the Embarcadero Developer Advocate. You can email me, please do, at ian.barker@embarcadero.com. Anything to do with development, our products, happy, sad, whatever you want, email me. I will respond. I'll reply to all our emails. I'm very, very busy. I get many, many emails because I keep giving out my email address, but that doesn't mean to say that I won't reply to you. That's what I'm there for. I'm literally there for you to reach out to me and contact me. Do not think that Embarcadero is some black box where nobody will listen to you when you're unhappy or when you're happy or you've got a great idea or whatever. We are there. We all give out our email addresses, and particularly mine. There's someone listening, and if I don't know, I'm not there for technical support. But if you've got a question, then ask me it. If I don't know the answer, I'll try and pass it on to someone who does know the answer. But if you just generally say, hey, I really like this feature in Rad Studio, please don't change it or get rid of it, tell me that too. It isn't just for complaining. Tell me something you like. And likewise, if you've got a really good idea, then come and tell me what the really good idea is, because a good idea is a good idea. And if we can adopt a good idea and it's for everybody's benefit, then we will do. And that has happened just recently. Someone approached me directly about something and it was extremely useful, and we are looking further into those things. You can read about me at about.me/Ian Barker. Today's slides and a blog post will appear. I'm very behind on those because I've been so busy. But go to tinyurl.com/IBGmail30. At the moment, it will just go to the main page, but later on, if you're watching this as a replay, it will actually go to a blog post with all the slides in there and all the links and everything as well. What's today's topic? How to send email via Gmail and Google Workspace. And when I say via Gmail, what I mean is using the mechanism behind Gmail, not just, acting like some kind of macro and sending things through the web interface of Gmail, which is what it's famous for. No, I mean actually connecting to their servers in an approved way that they allow and sending emails that way. And Google Workspace, which used to be called G Suite, is another way. It's very, very popular, as I'll tell you in a moment. And that's what this webinar is about. It is also about OAuth 2. If you've ever wondered how to do OAuth 2 with Delphi and Rad Studio, today you're going to find out, because I'm going to show you and demonstrate it and discuss the ins and outs. Well, who cares about Gmail? I mean, really, people say, "Oh, I don't use Gmail." Well, you may not, but 1.8 billion people around the world use Gmail. That's a lot of people. It's is that more than people in China? Maybe not. I don't know, but it's a lot of people around the world. It is by far the most popular email service in the world. It dwarfs anybody else. I mean, the Hotmail and the others are large as well, but Gmail is really, really taken off. I use it myself. I'm a very big fan of it, and I would say I'm probably a power user of it because of the way I do things. Gmail accounts for about 28.78 or 29% of the global email market. So 1 in 3 people are using Gmail. In the United States, Gmail has a 53% market share. That means it's 50-50 when you go to see someone that they are using Gmail in some way. The majority of Gmail's users are 25 to 34. I'm well out of that age bracket. Not quite as old as David I, but I'm getting there. Sorry, David, I'm not insulting your age there. He is the venerable age, and I'm the upcoming veneration age. In the US, 61% of people who are under 30 use it, 54% of people in their 30s, and 36% of people in their 40s and 60s. So, it is very popular. 90% of startups in the USA, 90% use Gmail. That's a heck of a market penetration. And 60% of mid-sized companies in the USA. So really, strictly speaking, you should care about Gmail because a lot of people out there are using it. This is not an ad for Gmail. I'm just saying if you are going to have ways of interfacing with a mail service, then you really do have to consider Gmail as an important option in your apps. When you're sending email, it's very possible that your customer is using Gmail. What's the problem though? Well, spammers have made our life very, very difficult due to spammers jumping on and sending lots of spammy email messages via Microsoft's Office 365, Google's Gmail, and Hotmail, which used to be a real den of spamming once upon a time. All of them have introduced some extra security measures, and that they vary from what's known as an app password, where you would set up a specific username and password your app would use, introducing things called SSL and TLS. So instead of sending plain text, which is how back in the day email used to work entirely by text, you could literally telnet to a mail server, type in some commands on the command line in text, and it would work that way. That doesn't happen anymore. In nearly all cases, for all the big players, you need to use a thing called OAuth. And this is more and more prevalent because if you look very closely at what they're saying, the wording really does strongly suggest that they're going to make you use OAuth at some point in the future. For details, see transition from less secure apps to OAuth. In other words, they're implying that if you're not using OAuth, your app is probably not secure. If you're in a business where you're struggling against the competition, it is a competitive advantage if you are seen as being more secure and more resilient, and supporting OAuth in your apps. That is one key thing that you can do to help with that impression. It's all about making sure you've ticked all the radio buttons and the boxes in your app, so that when you go to make a sale of your app, or when you go to acquire a user, or even if you're open source, you're trying to get people to use your system, having fewer barriers to adoption, that's the technical term for it, but fewer reasons to say no is important. You want more reasons why people say yes to using your app. OAuth is a very big tick. How does it work? Well, it allows the third-party service to independently authenticate your users. So instead of you having a database somewhere with usernames and passwords in, you're actually going off and asking a third party like Google, is this person a legitimate user? And instead of sending back username details and all the rest of it, although they do, and we'll talk about that in a minute, what they send back is an encrypted token. That token is highly secure, and that token basically says, yes, I have authenticated this person, they have given permission, more about that in a minute, to use the app, and we're cool with it, so you can go ahead and allow this user to use your service. It does require you to have an interactive channel with a third party. So in other words, the conversation between Google and yourself is to and fro. You go to Google and say, hi, my user would like to authenticate via you. They are shown a page that allows them to do that. Once they're authenticated, Google then comes back to you and says, yes, it worked, or no, it didn't work. And that's an important distinction we'll talk about in a minute. So behind the scenes, you've probably used it many times. In fact, that screen there is one from one of my own services. I have a couple of Google accounts, one for my work, in fact, two for my work, one for my private stuff, although I've used it for work in the past as well. It's same at Gmail. The user clicks their account and gets told what it's for and decides if they grant access. There's a thing called an OAuth flow. And so what happens is, because I've set this up as a demo, because I'm going to scrap all of this once we're finished, so that you can't steal my tokens. But in today's example, we're going to get some extra warnings, but you get at least one warning, okay? And it usually will say, it won't say that top warning, that top box there, because what you can do is verify your app. And there's a little process to go through. You need to look on the Google site to understand that. And then the bottom screen will show in all circumstances, which is, oh, okay, there's your Google account, ian.barker@gmail.com, which is my private email address. But I've given it out before, so it doesn't matter. And it says, you want to use that one to authenticate? And I say yes. It will then go through and say, hey, I just want you to know that this application that you're trying to authenticate, and this is your Delphi application, the user explicitly is told this person wants to read, compose, and send your emails. Now, there are some checkboxes to set that up in a moment, which I'll show you. You can decide to only do one thing, like read emails or send emails. But this one, the one that I set up, allowed me to essentially create a Gmail client. So my own, reading Gmail emails, processing them, create my own alerts from those, sending, and all the rest of it. Now you'll notice something where that arrow is pointing. By default, it's off. Default, it's off. So you need to have your user click on allow, because if they don't check that box and they don't spot it, by default, you will be denied the ability to send email. So that's one thing that OAuth does, is it fails safe. It doesn't allow you to click things. They also, before you get too carried away, they have the ability to make sure that people are not using a bot to do this. So if they detect what they think is bot activity, they'll put up a capture image and other methods, they're very good at spotting unusual behavior. You may even get asked to confirm on a known device. So as you go through, it'll say, well, hang on, before you go any further, it's not just sufficient to do this. I would like you to confirm that on your cell phone, for example, your mobile phone, or on a desktop computer that's logged in. You've probably seen it. It'll come down and show a set of numbers, and you're supposed to type in the number that has been sent to your already logged in and trusted device. It's extremely secure. It actually also allows you to never need to put in your password. And this is the way that things are heading out to being passwordless. Gmail have almost effectively scrapped passwords where they can. Microsoft's stated intent is to abolish passwords and have alternative two-factor ways of authenticating, but that's it. So the default is deny, make sure your people allow. When they do that, you'll typically get back a page that says, hey, well done, you've authenticated. If not, there might be a message that say denied. If it's denial, then obviously you cannot send your email. But if it's succeeded, then good to go. You can now send via Gmail. How do we do that? Okay, so how do we do that in Delphi? And the same applies to C++ Builder, but this is a Delphi example I'm showing at the moment. But the tools I'm going to show you can also work in C++ Builder. It's a little tricky. And the reason is that you've got that pesky little two-way conversation where Google's server talks to you and comes back and says, you know, hey, it's succeeded or denied. It's not like a function call where you call a function and the result of that function comes back as true or false. There's actually a process where you get a web page that's triggered and says, yeah, you're good to go. So you effectively host that OAuth flow that I showed you, the username and password, but in a weird way. Anyway, it's tricky, but we've got some projects that are going to help us. The first one is a really, really great example app. It's free and open source. And as with all these things, go to that project and scroll down and look at the license and make sure the license is in compliance with your use of it. I can't tell you whether you're going to be okay to use it for free, whether you need to credit Jeff, or whether you need to have some other, legal agreement. That's something you need to look at. It's written by Jeff Smith. Jeff is, if I'm right, and I apologize, Jeff, if you do see this, I believe Jeff is an Australian developer. He's in the Australian Delphi user group. And the reason I think that's it, because I saw a blog post from him, or a forum post in the ADUG, which is a really great forum for Australian developers, and where he mentioned this. But github.com/jeffsmith82 /Gmail auth SMTP. But that link, you'll see that link later. It's fantastic. There are a couple of little issues with it. I actually baked my own version of this, but I based it on Jeff's code. So, you've got everything you need there. The other thing that I'm using in this demo of mine is a project called Indie Extras. Embarcadero have a loose association with TurboPack, and we have provided some space to the Indie Extras project. And in there is one, as you can say, called Taurus TLS. Taurus TLS is written by JP Mugas, or J. Peter. He is in the chat. He said hi earlier on, so I know he's there. He's an MVP, very talented guy. You would have seen him in the birthday celebrations. I think he was the guy that had the blurry video and slightly wild guy. I love developers that are not, not wearing a tie and going, hello, I'm here. No, JP is definitely one of your developers. But you can get it from there, or you can go directly to JP's GitHub page as well. Excuse me. And you can get the Taurus TLS stuff. We'll talk about that in a moment, because I'll show you what you need from there. But the advantage of Taurus TLS over anything else is when you add it, when you install it, what will happen is it will allow Indie to use the latest version of OpenSSL. Now, if you're not familiar with the Indie project, then you probably need to look it up, but it's built into Rad Studio as well. We ship a version of our own with Rad Studio. Ian Holmes says, can we have a session on how to build a phone app using database on a phone? Actually, we have already done one, Ian. I'll find a link for you. Just one second. Drink of coffee, my voice is going. So yes, Taurus TLS, the key point about this is it has some bindings in there to let you update, shall we say, your indie projects to use the latest version of OpenSSL. Specifically, at the moment, it allows you to have OpenSSL 1.1 and version 3.x support. This is a really big deal. If you don't use Indie, then you probably have no idea how cool it is. But if you do use Indie, then you'll understand this is extremely important because it allows you to support later versions to TLS that you can't do before. And what you do is you install Taurus TLS. And Indie is very cleverly written by a number of people, but Remy Lebeau is the lead developer on that. And they have a plugin architecture for the I/O handlers for SSL. And because of that very clever idea to have this plugin architecture, then you can plug in, you just point the Taurus TLS, which I'll show you in a moment, into the Indie components, and it will magically start allowing you to use later versions of OpenSSL. It's a very big deal. JP also contributed towards the Indie project. He worked with Reme, the lead developer, and a few others as well. Serge, I think there's another one, and a few others. To get to this point, but Taurus TLS, I think it's great. He's got some good examples on there of an FTP client and an FTP server using FTPS. I tested it out the other day. It worked first time. It's great. So let's talk first, though. The very first thing you need to do before anything else is to set up OAuth. And if you talk about Google, then you need to do it using their interface. The Jeff's project, which I'll show you the link for again later, also talks about how to do it on Microsoft and how to do it on Hotmail. They have similar processes where you have set up a kind of a credentials page, and then you'll get given a thing called an app secret, which you need to put in the project, and then that will allow you to use OAuth. But you need to go to console.cloud.google.com/APIs/credentials. When you go there, you'll start by creating what's known as the app information. That's what they call it. And basically, it's a just one second. Let me just ban this person. Gone. There you go. That'll teach you to spammers. Yes, you basically put in the name of your app and then user support email. This is the email that the email address that you are going to use for when someone has a support problem with your app. And Google do validate that and make sure that it's the real thing. If you use a Google account, it's a lot easier because they can work it out. They have a little timeline there, a little breadcrumb type thing that talks to you and asks you the questions. Is this only going to be one you use internally? So if you work at a company and you only want this as a, I don't know, let's say you're Embarcadero, for example, you want to create an internal app that sends email internally and you use G Suite, then you could click on internal. However, if you're going to use it for a wider audience, customers or something else, Boyne says, hello, everyone. Sorry for being late. That's okay, Boyne. I'm glad you're here. But if you're going to do, the normal kind of thing that you would do with an OAuth app is to have it as an external account. So it'll ask you some questions, and it's not difficult. When you go through it, it'll make sense. What other things do you need to do? Well, once you go through and put in your contact information after you've done the audience, and contact information is obvious, so I haven't shown that screen. You'll get to the bottom and it'll say create. Once you've created, there's another step. You click on credentials and then in the search box, select APIs. Okay. And when you do that search for APIs, what will happen is you'll come up to a screen that says, well, what sort of APIs do you want to use? And there's quite a few of them. But it's obvious, you want the Gmail sending APIs. That's it's not difficult, trust me. And when you do that, it'll say, well, okay, good stuff, but what type of app is it? Now, for many of you, that's going to be a desktop app. You're creating, say, a Windows app or Mac app or Linux app. But it could be that you're a mobile app because obviously, Rad Studio with Delphi can do Android and iOS as well. And then you need to pick the appropriate type. Note that it's a single click. So this implies that you need a different client ID for Android than you do for iOS. And that's a fact. So if your app is actually going to work on the desktop, a UWP, iOS and Android, all of which are perfectly possible with Rad Studio, then you're going to have to create 4 client IDs. It's like a password, I suppose, but it's really just a very long number that you are going to put in the app, which I'll show you in a moment. Once you've done that, and I've chosen desktop app, it says, well, what's the name of your app? And this is just so that you can list it in the console. Because once you've got a few of these, you want to know which one it is. So let's say you are one of those people that's creating an iOS and an Android app. You might call this my Gmail test _ iOS, and then another one called my Gmail test _ Android, and another one my Gmail test _ Windows or something like that. But it's just a name. That name there is just to identify in your list of services. They do a creation process straight away, but as you can notice at the bottom of that little form, it says it may take 5 minutes or it may take a few hours. Oh wow, okay, so don't do this when you're in a rush, okay? Because I think they slow things down to make sure that people can't just randomly get away with creating spam bots or something, and I don't know whether they're throttling it or they do it at a certain time of the day. I don't know, but yeah, just be prepared that if you're doing this, give yourself some time, because until this is created, the client ID, there's nothing you can do. You've got to wait. And in my case, I just found that I created a couple, and in all the cases I got, it was instant. So I don't know quite even why they say take 5 minutes, but clearly for some people they do. Once you've done that, you'll come up with a screen that looks like this, except it won't have a blurry bit on it. And it's got 2 very important things in there. Okay. First of all, you see the bit that says OAuth access is restricted to the test users. Okay. So because I'm testing, I need to add some people in Gmail as testers. And in fact, I just added myself. But if you read that, if you click on that link, you'll go to a screen and it'll make sense what you have to do. You just have to add in like a Google account. But the 2 other things that are the most important on this particular screen are these ones. And that is the client ID and the client secret. Now, I blurred mine out because I don't want you sending stuff via your apps. In actual fact, it would be very difficult for you to do that because of the way the security works. But once you've got that client ID and that client secret, you're halfway there to sending spam and making it look like I did it, which is really not what we want to do. But anyway, it's that's it. So once you've done this, I know it took a while to describe. This is like 10 slides or something like that. In actual fact, once you go through it, it's very, very easy to do. It takes you like 10 minutes, something like that. and it's not difficult. And particularly once you get these slides available and have a look at them, you'll understand. You go, oh, actually, that's not too bad. Jeff's site does have, Dominic says, spoil sport. Yeah, Dominic, you're not spamming on my behalf. Thank you. Yes. But yes, it's fairly quick process. Jeff's example app is very, very good. I really commend you, Jeff Smith, for doing that. His example says, oh, here's where you need to go to do that. My screen's a little bit more in depth. They actually show the steps. His just shows the vector that you go to, the URL that you reach. So if you're going to use the example that I'm using, I recommend that you actually update your Indy to use the latest version of OpenSSL. Okay. Now, if you are using the version of Indy that's built into Rad Studio, rather than downloading Indy separately and installing it outside of Rad Studio, most people actually tend to use the built-in one. Then you can download those first two items there for Win32 and Win64 zip. And you will end up with some files that you unzip. And what you need to do is OpenSSL, libSSL, or something like that. You'll see them when you unzip the thing. Those need to be in the same location as your executable. Now, if it's Android or iOS, then there are some static libraries. They end in .so and things like that. Same with C++. You'll need to use the different application. But go to Taurus TLS OpenSSL in there, and he's got instructions in there how to do it, and it's fairly easy. You know, installing OpenSSL. If you're using the binaries, then you just put them in the same place as the executable. That's the easiest way. But if you're static binding, then first of all, you probably understand how static binding works, in which case knowing where to get the libraries from that location is going to make sense as well, I'm sure. So for my demo, I followed the first section on JP's site, which said, for Indy included with Delphi, do this. And I have to say, I messed it up the first time round because I didn't read step one. I don't know why. And I ended up with all sorts of errors because I hadn't got Indy upgraded from the website. And I was getting, why is this package not working? And then I went back and went, oh, I should have opened Taurus all.group project. That's where I went wrong. Me not clever. You know, I keep telling people I'm just a regular developer, human being, and make mistakes just like anybody else. But open that group project. You'll get two folders in there, two projects in there, Taurus TLS RT and Taurus TLS DT. RT is the runtime. All you need to do is compile that. So you right click and say compile, and it'll compile straight away like that. It did for me with version 12 of Rad Studio. And compile Taurus TLS underscore DT. And then right click on it again and say install. In fact, if you right click and install, I think it will compile anyway, but if it doesn't, you need to compile it first. I think that's, I'm sure if you click install, it compiles and then installs. What will happen then is it will install it on the palette. Now, if you're going to follow along with Jeff's example, and I really recommend you do, because the version I'm going to show you is exactly the same. I just made a few little changes. He says here, you'll need to create a file called globals.pass. When you download or clone his repository, he'll have the file's called something like example.globals.pass. And you need to rename it to globals.pass and then put in your auth ID that I talked about before. You remember earlier on in the Google bit, I said, write these down, the client secret and the Google thing. Write those down, just put them in there. They're literally constant entries. You know, you just go and edit the string, put them in. Not difficult. Trust me, anybody can do it, even me. Now, I wanted to use the upgraded OpenSSL. And so what I did, by default, as you can see on the screen there, this is the Jeff's program. You see the ID SMTP1. He also previously had it looking at that ID SSL IO handler socket SMTP. That's a big mouthful. The second one down from from the on the left, the designer there. Um, all I did was I clicked on the ID SMTP one, and I created the Taurus TLS by just double clicking it. You've installed it, you do it. Made sure the settings were the same as the original, and then I just clicked on IO handler and I picked Taurus instead of the original one. And that's it. That's all I had to do to upgrade the TLS so that it's a later version of TLS, a more secure version, and just generally, a later version. Easy to do, not difficult. And I'll show you in a moment this for sure. And I ended up with that. Now, this is it running. And the log actually prints some information that I can't show you. But that log is the conversation with the Gmail server. And as you can see, it says, okay, sent. And it worked. It worked first time. I did make sure that I clicked everything properly so that all the bits were in the same place. But there I go, send message, and out came the Gmail. Very good. So what we're going to do is just have a look now at a demo so you can see it in action. What I did forget to do is actually show you a screenshot. Let's see if I've got one here. Second. We've got to show you what you get, a screenshot when your email's sent. I had one that was obfuscated, so you couldn't see all my secret details. Okay, well, maybe I'll risk it and show you my email in a minute. Really? Didn't have it in. Okay, all right. Well, I'm going to show you it working, so that makes sense. Let me pull up Rad Studio. So this is a version of Jeff's project, and you'll remember before that I said, and I'm going to pull this over so you can see it. Go to here. It's in dark mode. Let me make it go in light mode. Go to there. Gmail author SMTP Jeff Smith. Very good. And here he's got an example. He shows you how to do the setup and the Microsoft setup and all the rest of it. Now, his app was a little bit old-fashioned, and I just wanted to, for my purposes, for it to do something different. So the basics are still the same. So he's had these buttons here, authenticate. He had a to address, it a subject. Oh, he didn't have a subject. Actually, he didn't have any of these. He hard coded these. I've made them so that they're editable. But what he has is this unit here. So when you click on the send button, which is this one, it goes off and it sends the message. Okay, and I just hacked it so that you've got a destination address, destination subject, and a body. Okay. All you do is it's a nice little data module. Okay. And it's calling this to actually do the sending. It's an SMTP, in the SMTP component. Okay. And previously he had it using this IO socket. So Indy has, like I say, this concept of IO handlers that are plugins. So Ian Home is one that ended a month ago. Yes, correct. So it's got this concept of plug-in IO handlers. So I could, instead of using Taurus, I could use this one. And so now it's going to use this as an intercept and use slightly outdated version of SSO. In fact, if I tried to do this, I think it will crash because it's got the wrong bindings. But I actually want it to use my Taurus TLS one, which is the one that comes from JP Muga. So all I need to do is on that, change the IO handler. The IO handler manages all of the SSL, all the encrypted traffic, the to and fro. There's some other bits here because he does allow you to connect to a POP server to read email. He also supports IMAP. For our purposes, we're only going to send email. I wasn't really interested in reading it. So we go in on the send button and it does an authentication, blah, blah, blah. Make sure it's got a token already, which I'll show you in a moment. If it needs to refresh the token, it will do. And then connects, authenticates. Yes, everything's authenticated. I set the from address, to address, reply to address, the subject, the body, and then I send it and disconnect. Assuming everything works, then it comes up and says message sent. Okay. Very cool. I don't claim any responsibility for this. This is all Jeff. I just tweaked his stuff. Okay. So if I just run it for a second. You can't see it because my app starts off on my other screen, but here's the email address I'm going to send it to, which is me, obviously. And here's the subject. So I'm going to say test message via Gmail. Let's just put an exclamation mark in, and let's put smiley face in. There's a log here which I'm deliberately dimming out, but there's nothing really particularly useful there. If I clear the OAuth token, what will happen is it will go off and authenticate. But for now, I'm going to leave it there just so you can see what happens. So watch the log. There's the conversation between our app and the server, and the message is sent. And you think, well, what happens there? Well, I'm going to take a screenshot. I think I'm going to do that. That one here. And that's it. That's the email come through. And it's come through to me on my work email. And you remember I did the smiley face and put the exclamation mark on. Simple as that. It's a very nice little demo. Oops, a very nice little demo he's got set up there, and the Taurus TLS makes it very, very easy. I think if I do this and click on authenticate, what will happen now is it will go through and ask me to authenticate. I don't want to show you that, but what I'm seeing is that screen that we saw on the previous slide, where we're seeing this kind of thing. So I'm just going to blur out my stuff I don't want you to see. So that's the screen I see, except obviously that's not blurred like it is there. And then when I click on Ian Barker, it says, "Are you sure you want to do that?" I'm going to say yes. And then it says, by doing this, you know, bad things are going to happen. And then we get this screen come up that says, as we saw before, watch out, because you know there's something bad. Remember, I told you we have to click on this thing here. I'm going to click on that and click on continue. And now I have the screen saying that it's successful. So at that point, what it's doing is it is hosting that locally inside my app. So this is a little web server that's running on port 2132 for the OAuth thing that says successfully authenticated. You can now close this tab or window, which you will have seen a million times. And that's it. Now, there's a little bug in his hat that it doesn't refresh these buttons. I probably should fix that myself. But I'll just close that window. And now when I say send message, you can see it sending again. And bing, you can't see it, but in the background, I've received that email again. So a very, very nice little implementation by Jeff. I like it. Even nicer implementation by JP Mugas. But everything you need is in that example. It's not many lines of code. I did create a region here that hides some personal information to do with my um, tokens and stuff like that, because I didn't want to accidentally hover over, this, and then it shows the contents of the token. And I did that by clearing the region. But everything you need is in here. It's really, really not difficult. The data module, like I say, you probably, if you're only going to send email, then you don't need any of these here. Then they're not needed. Okay, you would only need this, and probably this, and everything else will work. The IMAP stuff is for receiving email either via POP3 or sending. So if you wanted to create a real whole mail client and you wanted to read all of the emails, then you could do that in here. You could pull down all your emails, and he's got methods to do that as well. It's up here. So sorry, it's up here. He has, is it authenticated? Check your IMAP email, and that would be, you know what IMAP is. It's a way of reading email that's a bit more on steroids. It's a bit more interactive, interactive mail authentication protocol. And POP is your old-fashioned, hey, I want to poll you to see if you've got any emails. Do you have any emails for me? Yes, I do. Here's 100 emails. Okay, give me the list, and it comes down with the headers of the email, and then you get a list of email bodies, and then you can display them on your tree view or something like that. But we're only sending email. That's it. That's all you need to do to do IMAP with OAuth. The clever part is this whole thing here, which is that on this what's the word I'm looking for? On this data module, he sets up this whole authentication module with a callback, so that when it calls back, then it's coming back to an internal server, HTTP web server, and it's on local host on the port that I said before, 2223 or something. I forget what it was, and you then process that. It looks more complicated than it really is. It's not at all complicated. Respect to Jeff, because I'm very impressed. What was the settings he called it? Globals, wasn't it? Globals. I'm sure it was globals. So I've actually hidden mine in an include file, but you just changed some settings in here. There's some similar ones for Gmail, and you put your settings in for when you set your Gmail account up. Do the same for Microsoft. Do the same for Hotmail. Great demo from Jeff, and more importantly, a really great upgrade for the Taurus TLS. Okay, so let me just put my slide up again to the next one. So I am going to do a blog post for this to recap the various steps, because there's a lot of links in there that you need to go to. And if you do try this out and you get some problems, feel free to email me, ian.barker@embarcadero.com, and I'll try and help you out as much as I can. I'll point you to the resources. Kudos to Jeff Smith, as I said, from the Delphi, the Australian Delphi user group, because what he did was really fantastic. Let me turn my camera back on again. But more importantly, JP Mugas as well. Fantastic stuff. Upgrading OpenSSL to version 3 is something we've been trying to do for a long while and get doing. And Remy is super busy. He's the lead developer on the indie project, and they've been working together in between, them living real lives and doing all the things that you need to do. But they got it working. So that's it. Are there any questions? I don't think there are. Nobody's asked any questions. There you go. I think we covered everything. Maybe I'm back there. I should take it on. Yes, I've forgotten about that. So the thing about OAuth too is that you bump into it more and more now, and you find that most people like Microsoft, Google, all the big players, Oracle, and many of them are now going to expect your apps to be able to support this. And if you took what Jeff had done, and there's a bit of code there that you can cut out, OAuth 2 is not difficult. It's really just having that internal web server running, which is an indie component. It does it in code, and then doing the authentication backwards and forwards. Most sites that want OAuth 2 have got some kind of API where they say you need to get this credential set up. So you have some like Amazon, for example, you have to set up some credentials as well. And I know that Richard Howell's got another webinar coming up for me where we're going to show that process. He's created a component that makes it a lot easier. So you plug in some properties in a component and then everything works. That's my understanding. I haven't seen it working yet, but I'm told that's how it works. But if you can support OAuth 2, then I really recommend that you should, because it's only a question of time before Google say, no, that's it. And you would say, well, no, that would never happen. They would never cut everybody out and say, we're only going to support you if you work OAuth 2. Just today, this morning, Microsoft have announced they're discontinuing Skype from May. So if you are a Skype user, got some news for you. From now on, from May onwards, it won't work anymore. They're going to make you use Teams. And that's slightly irritating to us because at Embarcadero, because the original version of Skype was written in Delphi. But you know, these big corporates like Google and Microsoft, they just want to call the shots and all of a sudden force you to use OAuth 2. So that is, I think, the way things are at the moment. You probably need to to learn how to support as soon as you can. Question by Michael: is OAuth completely hidden, or does it require user intervention to log in? Okay, once you've got the token, which is like an access token, there's a longevity to how long the token works. It's a bit like having a key code to a door. At some point, that they expire your token, and then depending on the service, some of them you can just ask for a refresh token and it will work. But some of them won't do that, and yes, your user will need to re-authenticate. If you've ever gone to a Microsoft service that's an online service, you'll quite often come along and it'll say Microsoft needs to log you in, and when you see that, that's OAuth doing that, and so they will expire it when they feel like it. So it's not completely hidden. Initially, the tendency is to require some form of interaction with the user for them to grant that. It's not complete. It's not always the case. It is theoretically possible to not have the user intervene, but it just depends on the service. With Google and Microsoft, it's interactive. You've got to log in. So that's the. Paul says microdollar. Well, yeah, they're rich. We're not. You think that? Didier Koala says, I once created a simple SMT app based on Gmail, but without OAuth. It worked like a charm. Yeah, so Didier, what you probably had was a thing called an app password. And what you can do in Google is you can set up a username and password for your app, and then you log on to the mail server like you're a user. You have to use encryption now, like SSL, so that no one can snoop on your username and password. And then your username and password logs on to the mail server and works. The reason that is being deprecated, and I think they're heavily hinting they're going to prevent that altogether, because they call it an insecure method of authentication, is that with OAuth, the app doesn't contain anything apart from an app secret, which is useless to most people. It's not entirely useless, but it's actually quite useless to a certain degree. And plus, you create that remotely, and you can change that remotely, and so on and so forth. But if you're using a username and password and it's embedded in the app, anybody can decompile your app or get to the app in some way. There's on Linux, for example, there's a command called strings where they can look for strings. If they're not encrypted, if they're plain text strings, they can get your strings out. It happens all the time. It's very, very easy to extract all the strings from an app. In fact, if I open Ubuntu, probably can't do it. Yeah, I haven't got it set up at the moment. But you could pull out all the usernames and passwords. So you can do it without OAuth, but they're very heavily hinting that that's not going to be around for much longer. Don't forget, Google do not have a problem with withdrawing a service that, even though lots of people seem to really like it. And the reason is they're talking about a scale that is almost unimaginable, 1.8 billion people. So there's a big responsibility, a heavy responsibility for them around the world to make sure there's 1.8 billion people are secure. If they find a vulnerability with app passwords, and I suspect that is quite often the case, eventually OAuth, which is much more secure, is going to be forced on everybody. So your app probably still works. I have some that do. You need to use explicit TLS and things like that. Again, that's outside the scope of today, but if you look at Jeff's example, you'll see how it works. I will put my example up on the web as well. I'll fork his repo and put my example up. How do you run a local host indie server on a desktop machine behind a router with no port forwarding? Gaza, that's exactly what that is doing. I have no port forwarding set up on my own router. Look at Jeff's code and it will work. It will work for you, because I didn't look in depth, but it's because you're making an outgoing connection, not an incoming connection. So you are connecting to them and offering up this callback. I didn't change anything in my router at all. I think the only thing I probably did, and I don't remember doing this, was say, "Oh, allow it to access the internet." But apart from that, nothing, no changes. I didn't put any DMZ zone, on the router or anything like that. I didn't create any port forwarding or open any ports. It just worked. So look at the example and see. David I says, I have sent using SMTP, using GMail, but that's still using open. Yes, I'm not saying that the latest version of OpenSSL fixes a broken thing. All I'm saying is that the Taurus TLS, there's some others as well, but the Taurus TLS is open source and uses the latest libraries. If you want to use OpenSSL 3.x, as far as I'm aware at the moment, Taurus TLS is the only publicly available IO handler, SSL IO handler that does. Okay, sorry, my wife's just telling me she's going to see her father. Okay, there you go. Webinar guest. Will the example run on Mac OS, or are there dependencies to Windows? We are using FMX. Marcus, the app that I have here is VCL. So that example would only work on Windows. However, the code that he has, I don't believe is going to be a problem on FMX. I haven't really got time because of the amount of webinars I'm doing. I haven't really got time to do a FireMonkey version. I tend to do FireMonkey versions first, and then narrow it down to VCL. But as far as I'm aware, if you use the right libraries, it's going to be fine. There are Taurus TLS has got stuff for Mac OS X. He actually Mac OS. Sorry, he actually explicitly says that on his website, so you can use OpenSSL. You can look at the code and how he does it in Indy. I think you'll find it works fine. Paul says, for a project I'm working on, the access token is good for 1 hour. Yes, actually, you can change how long the access token is valid for. I think you can even say once. I'm not sure. I can't remember when I was setting it up. I was looking at it. But yeah, it's a good thing. Taurus, JP, who is the guy who wrote Taurus TLS. You're a good man, JP. Taurus TLS does work on Mac OS. Yes, I saw it in the repo, and he's got specific things there. He is looking, by the way. He's looking for people to test Taurus TLS on iOS and Android. It has had a couple of people volunteer, some MVPs, but if you're interested in that, ping him on the repo and say that you're interested in helping test it on Android and iOS. The only reason he's not tested it is he just doesn't have all the equipment that he needs to do that. Not everybody can have all the kit you need. Good tip about why to use OAuth. Yes, yeah, absolutely. The reason for OAuth is it kind of takes away the responsibility from the app for the username and password, because you don't care. You're not interested in how they log into Gmail. It's not your problem. What you do is you go over to Google and say, hello, please log this person in. And when it works, they send back a token that's like called an access token, which is completely useless to anybody but your app and that user. So they can't, nobody can, swipe it and do something with it. Likewise, the app secret that gets sent out, because of the way that it's set up, it's actually very difficult to use that as well, because your user's got to do it. It's not impossible. I'm not saying that it's 100% secure, but it's much more secure than a username and password, especially app passwords, which are very vulnerable. In Linux, you could extract the strings like that with one command line. We were doing it yesterday to prove something was written in C++. To use OAuth inside a Windows service, no GUI. I guess you need to set up the account within the configuration panel to get the token, and then you can use it indefinitely to send emails. Yes, you would. Well, no. You all the button's doing is triggering the call to get the token. So you could do that in command, in a code, without having to click on a button, because the button is just initiating some code. So if you can click a button to initiate code, then you can make the code call. So I'm thinking in a Windows service you can do it. The problem you're going to have with a Windows service is some versions of Windows are going to be very unhappy about you trying to create a HTTP server inside the service. There might be some permissions you need to set up. I've not done that myself, but I have created services that do generate. I mean, WebBroker, for example, does it. But I have created Windows services that do, spontaneously open HTTPS and HTTP ports. So I don't think it's going to be a major problem. Excuse me. But I think it is something where you're gonna have to take a look and see. Does it need to be refreshed from time to time? Yes. The example code that Jeff has shows you checking the validity of the code. It's part of the loop. Before you send it, says, "Is my token still valid? If it is, great. If not, get a refresh token." For the Windows service, I'm not sure if you would need to have a GUI in order to validate it, and I suspect you would. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I've not done it myself in that way. It depends if it's a Google OAuth or if it's something else. But usually, most services have some kind of GUI, kind of set me up and off we go. And then you can set the length of life of the token. Google will expire your tokens, but you can refresh them and they'll create a new one. So, and the code has got that in, like I say, the example code. So it's pretty good. I think that's it. Wow, I've already got through all your questions, and there weren't that many horrible ones. Yeah, it's cool stuff. Look, it looks complicated. When I'm explaining in a webinar, it makes it look more complicated than it is. And the reason is that I have to go through the steps, step by step, to show you so that you can rewind this, pause it and go, all right, now I need to do this. Pause it. Oh, I need to click on that. Pause it. And plus, I want to, in most cases in the webinar, when we first start, we're always saying hi to everybody around the world because I want everybody to know they're not alone. They're not the only Delphi programmer in Dallas or whatever, but there are other people around. But once we get over that part, once I start showing those slides, it's a step by step, covering all the angles. And that's what I do. And so it looks a little bit more complicated than it actually is because I'm having to show you each step by step and explain them. Once you've done it once or twice, you'll go, oh, that wasn't complicated at all because it wasn't for me. And I then wrote a webinar about it. I did it yesterday, recording. I knew what I was going to do, but he recorded the screens. Now, Fernando, who's one of our employees, a really great guy, based in Brazil, he has some different code for doing OAuth with Microsoft stuff. And I'm probably going to post that on a blog post or something, or put it up on one of our repos because it's an example of how to do OAuth in a different way. What he does is the same thing. He does create like an internal web server, but he went through and used their Graph API, which is Microsoft's way. Today we showed Google, but Microsoft have a very similar process. It's not that different. It's very similar. The example app that I pointed you to does Google, Hotmail, and I think they just say Microsoft, but I'm not sure. Oh no, Yahoo. But it really just shows you how to talk to OAuth servers and then get the tokens back. So very, very good. It's not difficult. Unique Software's officials. It says, hi, I'm from Pakistan. Delphi is a very powerful ID for software developers. Yes, you're amongst friends because we all think so too. So thanks for letting us know. And Dominic says, cool. I feel like I have to say it with a slight American twang to what I say. Okay, all right. Well, look, I hope that was useful to you. I am going to get the blog post caught up. I have many other things to do. If you only knew the things I have to do, I'm going to do a webinar on what I do as well one day because I'm going to Denmark, for example, in April, where there's a 2-day event. I don't think I've got a link for it. No, I really should do, shouldn't I? Yeah, well, if you go to our events page on the main site, I'm going to be in Denmark for 2 whole days of just me showing people how to do stuff, and we're covering all sorts of subjects. But the Danish users, DAPUG, I think they are. They've got me as a captive audience. So I've got to do like 14 sessions or something like that. I forget. It's 2 full days. I love Denmark. It's a beautiful country, but I'm paying for it by having to do a lot of work. Plus, we've got 12.3 preview webinar coming up. So if you fancy going to that, you really should. And also, if you haven't done it before, you can register on here and you get told about all our webinars, all our 30 for 30 webinars. Excuse me. A terrible throat pain. All our 30 for 30 webinars. If you're watching on YouTube or LinkedIn or any of the other services that support it, click on the like and subscribe button. I'm not too worried about the likes because nobody will pay me anything extra. We don't monetize the channel, but subscribe, and then there's that little bell icon. Click on that and select all, and then whenever I produce a webinar or go live, it will ping you. I won't know who you are. I don't get any pay rise for doing it, but you will get notified that I'm doing it live. In March, I'm doing several webinars, including these Tuesday and Friday ones. We're going to do some on specific AI. Oh, my dog's woken up. Specific webinars on AI. We've also got some other things planned as well, and I'm hosting the 12.3 webinar. Sneak peek at what's coming up, and I'm also doing a webinar in South Korea and another one in Australia. So you may see me looking very tired some days where I haven't slept for like 24 hours or something because I've been doing non-stop stuff. But 30 for 30 webinars. If you are interested in purchasing the products, and I really think you should, then where is it? Where's my discount gone? Oh no. Rad offer, there you go. If you go to there and you're going to upgrade, I think, or renew or purchase, go there and you get up to 30%. 30% for 30 years. See, there's a theme going on. 30 webinars for 30 years and 30% off for 30 years. It's almost like we plan it, isn't it? And you know, go there and see it. And I've mentioned before already, and I know I keep banging on about it, but go to the Delphi Summit as well. So Delphi Summit, if you want to see what the last one's like, you've got a really good video on that website as well, and you'll see me going, do you use Delphi? Put your hand up. And I put my hand up like that, not like you know, the ones that have been doing recently, but I deliberately made sure my hand was up like that. You see it, and you'll see that the whole audience put their hand up. It was the Delphi Summit, so kind of a cheat. But the same in Brazil, and the same in some of the others as well that I've been to, Germany and stuff like that. You know, people use Delphi, and I want people to know. But DelphiSummit.com. And the other thing as well is if you want to read or subscribe about Pascal in general, Object Pascal and Delphi, we're both sides of the same coin. Object Pascal, Free Pascal, slightly different area to us, but so you could do worse than subscribe to this magazine. I write for this magazine, and so do people from the Free Pascal team as well. And by the way, I get no commission on this. He's a really great guy. Detlef Overbeek is the name of the editor, and it's a good magazine. He was on at Christmas time when we were there. All right, I'm gonna call it a day for now. Then I will see you again on Tuesday, and on Tuesday, oh yes, we are doing how to create web apps the easy way using Rad Studio, Delphi, and C++ Builder. We'll show a little bit of C++ Builder as well on Tuesday. But if you've ever wanted to do web apps with Delphi and Rad Studio and C++ Builder, Tuesday's the time to go and have a look and see what you can do. But until then, I'm going to say bye-bye to you all. Oh, we've got some more questions. Dominic says, very good, thanks. Oh, yes, indeed. But that's it for me now. I will see you again at the same time this coming Tuesday for web apps. And then on the Friday, we are doing best practices and top tips for when developing mobile apps. And I'm going to actually work on a mobile app live. So that will be fun. Paul says, Coolio. Yes, he does. And Gaza says, very informative session. Thanks, Ian. Thank you. It's I'm a Delphi fan. That's why I do it. And, you know. But I've fallen in love with Delphi. Sorry, David. David Millington, who is the project manager for C++ Builder. There you go. Well, product manager, actually. And Boyan says, thank you. Boyan, yes. Boyan, whilst you're on, Boyan, you and I, we need to do a webinar together. I will turn up. And if you want to do it on a Saturday or something, let me know, and I'll come to you, and we will do one and put it out on your site. Okay. So Boyan is a good friend of mine. But Boyan, if you want to do a webinar about IoT things and talk about your stuff, let's do one just for you, and we'll broadcast it on your site and advertise it on our site. Let me know. And a lot of people are saying yes, that would be good as well. Charles says thank you. Thanks, Charles. Pavel, hello, Pavel. Says thanks a lot, Ian. Pete says, Chuck. See you soon. And Paul says, yes, thank you, Ian. And Malcolm Chan says, doing, kangaroo time. Yep. And I think that's cool. Probably what I'm going to do for now. Okay. Well, rambled enough yet. Speak to you on Tuesday. Have fun. Enjoy Delphi. Enjoy C++ Builder. Email me if you ever want to. Bye bye.